And as I say it, taken straight off the board. Oh, man.
Oh, that's a bit disappointing, isn't it?
No penguins today, unfortunately.
Well, look at this. You were on the money when it comes to predictions. Braum as well, so Schalke feel that Hybrid's the threat here.
Schalke taking a very similar strategy to what Vitality did yesterday, just tunneling a lot of their bans onto taking Hybrid away on any comfort supports. Likely he's going to have to transition onto the Nami or the Janna, depending on how he's feeling. But it does seem that Schalke, they just want to cripple where OG is already weak.
All right, cripple where they're weak. Let's find out if Peke can get a comfort pick. Yesterday, he ran Sivir and Lucian, two of the more standard ADCs. The last bans here, Rek'Sai and Vladimir. So a lot of these power picks, nothing really surprising, and a very quick lock-in for that Elise for Gilius.
So interesting that OG are actually the team to ban away the Vladimir. Given that they are on the purple side for game one, red side, sorry, they just don't want to afford Fox to get it as the first pick, because Fox was one of the first mid laners to bring out that Vlad, and he did some excellent work on it. With the Elise, it's basically saying, all right, Gilius didn't have a good game yesterday, but today we're going to get him on something early game, and because the Rek'Sai is taken away, let's see if OG can match that same early game pressure that Gilius can provide.
Well, it's going to be difficult. I'm looking at Amazing's champions played. 5 different champions across the 6 games. Only Kindred has repeated more than once. So trying to find something that will stick. And he's going to get his hands on Gragas once more. Has played it once, and it was in a loss.
Well, Gragas can apply early ganks if he wants to, but he won't be able to outduel that Elise. Unfortunately, his clear speed is not quite the same as Elise, and setting up those early game ganks not quite as powerful. If he ends up in a 2 versus 2 or even a 3 versus 3, typically he will fall behind. But what he is really good at is team fighting. He can set up the potential pick, he can cause a lot of disruption in these team fights, and when you pair it up with that Sivir, it really does make forcing these engages and getting these picks around the map quite easy for your team.
My question is, what else do they round it out with? There's a lot of utility in both of these champions already. And of course, Soaz, he's also played quite a few champions. Poppy Maokai, Echo, Fizz. I want to see what he continues to adapt to on this new patch. I had a very good chat to Odawamne, and he was saying he felt a lot of these top lane picks were coming in because of the squishier supports that we're seeing more and more, and they're easier to kill, so get something that can kill them quicker.
I'd love to see Soaz on Aurelia. He has been playing really well in the top lane so far. Arguably the shining star of Origen so far. Even in their losses, he has been putting up good score lines. And if he gets his hand on something like an Aurelia, he has a lot of playmaking potential.
Well, playmaking potential. Is this a potential wombo combo? Misfortune Karma. Okay. That's not something I was expecting.
No, the last time we saw Misfortune was actually in the Challenger Series qualifiers from SK Gaming, and they ran the Misfortune Taric down in the bottom lane, and that was one crazy wombo combo. They went actually for the Ghostblade into Black Cleaver build, which if you line perfectly with your ultimate, you can quickly get those stacks, and you can do a lot of damage to the enemy team if given the opportunity. The big risk is you plant yourself in the ground, and you're leaving yourself open to these big threatening top laners that we've been discussing.
So you mean like the Gragas can disrupt the MF, the Sivir speed can run around them?
Yeah, that too.
There's some of these tools that OG have already locked in. I think it's going to be interesting to see whether or not MrRallez can find a good ultimate. I mean, you've now got a Nami to disrupt as well. And Soaz says, I don't care, I'll just run at you, bro.
And it makes his life even easier if you're just going to stand still for him. I mean, Olaf is already one of the great top laners that does such a good job on getting onto these low mobility champions. It's even easier if you don't move.
And correct me if I'm wrong, did Vitality not beat Origen yesterday with that Olaf in the top lane?
Yes, they did.
So maybe learning from something that happened both on stage and off stage. And it'll allow PowerOfEvil the counter pick in the mid lane. I don't know how valuable that is, because PowerOfEvil's champion pool is not one that revolves around that kind of strategy. Maybe I'll go Oriana and just give them some wombo combo here.
Wow, the personal pet peeve is you pair up a Gragas with an Oriana. It's a really horrible combo that can go so wrong so many times. But they have a lot of room right now, because Origen have so much available in their kit. They've got a really good run, really fast comp with the Nami, with the Sivir. Pair that up with the Olaf as well, you can just run straight towards your enemy team. And because you have the Gragas in there as well, there's very little that Schalke can do to stop that. Perhaps an Azir would act as a good disengage, but what Schalke need to do right now is, because it's quite obvious that OG are basically going for, we're going to run at you, they need some kind of front line to sit there and go, we're not going to let you get that close to us.
And I think the Azir and the Poppy will answer that question. Schalke have rounded out their team composition. I think pretty good elements here of, you know, some team fight, some pick, some skirmish. The Misfortune, I think, doesn't necessarily benefit from the rest of the composition because they want to scatter everyone array. But regardless, that could also be a reaction to what Origen have locked in.
So this to me says that MrRallez knows something about Misfortune that we don't. Perhaps a comfort pick of his. But the Schalke composition does make up for a lot of the weaknesses or a lot of the strengths that OG are trying to bring to the table. Because you have a lot of disengage. This was something that OG struggled with against Vitality yesterday. Or Vitality, sorry, struggled with OG, where there was a huge amount of disengage.
And this is interesting. A PowerOfEvil Z. So more targets that just want to get in your face. Although, it will open up some split pushing threat here as well if PowerOfEvil is able to play some of those side lanes.
It certainly will, and I'm actually quite surprised that we're seeing the Zed on this patch because he did receive a couple of changes, took a bit of damage nerfs, but now actually on his Q, if you're able to land the second Shuriken, you will get a bit of extra damage. But what we do know is if we think all the way back to last year's MSI where we saw Feathervin up against Faker, Zed could do a lot of work into an Azir. That's why Fox is being forced to run this exhaust to try and alleviate some of that pressure.
It's going to be a challenge, and it's going to be one that PowerOfEvil has thrown down the gauntlet. Literally not 4 minutes ago, I was saying PowerOfEvil doesn't traditionally go for that sort of counter pick. Now he's got the opportunity, the potential to do so. But he doesn't exactly have the greatest early game jungler. You know, if Elise is around, of course, in Gilius' hands, it could make PowerOfEvil's life a little more challenging.
I'm actually really excited because we were wondering how PowerOfEvil, was going to do on this current patch. He hasn't demonstrated a huge variety of champion picks as of yet, and he hasn't had great performances. Yesterday he got the Vlad, today he's got the Zed, and if there's any opportunity for him to shine, this will definitely be it.
Well, yesterday, Amazing was really doing a lot of work for Soaz. So the question that we have is whether or not he's going to share his focus with PowerOfEvil, get that Zed ahead. That's something we're going to have to figure out just a little bit of time. Ladies and gentlemen, you see the team comps on your screen. Jump onto Twitter and let us know who you think will come out victorious. As you see both the back and the front of us as we load up onto the Rift.
We needed that shot to prove that we do iron the back of our shirts, not just the front. But we are now actually into game. So this is a great opportunity for me to talk about these team compositions that we do have coming out from both OG and Schalke. As we mentioned, OG very much about running at their opponents, but they actually have quite a good 1-3-1 setup now with Soaz up in the top. PowerOfEvil can go off into a side lane, and there's actually very little options for Schalke to be able to deal with him. So it was great for PowerOfEvil to save this Zed pick all the way till the end because other than perhaps Poppy, no one's really going to be able to stop him in a 1v1.
Yeah, and even then, it's going to be hard for Steve to contain the wave-pushing power that PowerOfEvil is going to be putting down. Now, taking a quick look through these summoner spells, no surprise, PowerOfEvil running that Flash Ignite. Over on the side of Schalke, they've got 2 exhausts, and they're going to need that because they're going to have an Olaf, a Zed, and a Sivir to contend with all game long.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart pickup from Schalke. The best way to deal with this assassins is the exhaust. No longer can you avoid that sort of relentless damage reduction that the exhaust can provide, but it's going to do so much work against these assassins, so you have to be very mindful of it. One of the reasons why few mid laners have strayed from it, wanted to avoid that, but still, it should be alright during the laning phase of PowerOfEvil. Should be pretty standard, and it does look like right now we are actually going to get standard matchups.
Alright, so standard duo down bottom. MrRallez already got himself a point into that make it rain. Definitely going to give them any sort of advantages to extended trades. And Peke and Hybrid stepping backwards. This was one of the questions I had for Peke, how he was going to handle the duo lanes, the 2v2s, because the dynamic is not something that you can really come to grips with in such a short space of time.
Well, as a high elo player, in terms of the mechanics, this was something we discussed yesterday on the desk, that he still possesses the ability to play AD carry, and in terms of being able to farm, I'm sure everyone remembers how talented Peke is at picking up farm. So no matter what the champion is, I'm sure he can still do it. And so far, he's been holding his own at the very least. Just what we haven't seen is lane dominance coming out from Peke. You're playing on a Sivir who typically can put a lot of pushing power down, but when you're going up against the Karma and the Misfortune, it can be a little bit more difficult to deal with than most other matchups.
And of course, this particular matchup, if you're not pushing the wave in, it becomes even more difficult. We catch a glimpse there of Steve. He's dealing with Soaz. Soaz keeps tossing out those undertows in the general direction of Steam. There we go. Trading back and forth, heading against the wall. Well, this is a matchup that's going to be quite exciting to watch as it unfolds, and as both top laners will continue to grow, both tankiness and damage-wise.
Yeah, ever since the nerfs to Poppy, her laning phase took a bit of a hit, so now compared to a lot of other top laners, she's not quite as obnoxious. But now, especially against an Olaf who actually received a couple buffs not too long ago, means that he's a little bit harder to deal with. As Fox taking a bit of damage right now.
A lot of damage. The Shuriken comes out amazing. Body slams towards PowerOfEvil with an early flash. Looking for more. Cooldowns are out. Lands a Shuriken and nothing more. Trailing flash as Cocoon comes down. Gilius got the Spiderlings to help. Look at MrRallez and Sprattel with Strut as well as the Scuttle Crab. A lot of movement speed actually for Schalke to play with. Something we've not necessarily touched on. A lot of mobility on the Schalke squad. You know, not blinks, but running, repels, glides, tools. There we go. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, they do. Their ability to avoid fights is actually quite strong. Especially with the wall that you also have and the ultimate from Steve. So plenty of abilities that available to them to actually just get out of sticky situations. But other than that gank in the mid lane, not too much happening mid. PowerOfEvil, I think he got a little bit too greedy using that flash. He could have just been happy with the dual summoner spell burnt from Fox and then looked to save that flash for a potential play later on. But a bit of a miscalculation on his part. Not going to cost him too much.
And well, right now. We'll see if it does later. You know, both mid laners without flash. Amazing and Gilius, both level 4. And as we approach 5 minutes, an early lane swap here initiated by Origen.
Amazing is very low. If they want to go for the dive, this is very risky, but Steve, he very clearly sees it coming with the ward.
So what do you make of this lane swap? Soaz actually pulled off a significant CS lead, but Origen may have just brute forced their way into this tower. Got you first, and there's a reply from Schalke. Look at the minimap.
This is a very unique strategy. The first time I've actually seen it come out before, and Origen, it seemed to me that, as you rightly said, there was a big lead being built up by Soaz in the top lane, so by rotating Peke and Hybrid round to the top half of the map, they basically wanted to avoid this 2 versus 2 because of how difficult it was for Peke. It's not that easy to trade back and forth with the Misfortune, especially with that Grievous wound stacking. It's very irritating. On top of that, the Karma constantly throwing out this poke. It just means you get forced under turret all the time. The Make It Rain on top of the Karma Q means you're going to be constantly forced under turret, and that's not really where Peke wants to be. So by swapping it around and actually moving in with the lane of Origen up in the top, they deny a lot of farm from Steve, and they were hoping that they could set up a 2 versus 1 and take that early turret. Unfortunately for them, there was quick response from Schalke because MrRallez and Sprattel were still in base when they made that switch.
MrRallez on that Misfortune. Unless I'm mistaken, I think the Grievous Wounds was removed from the W on the Strut. It's been a while since we've seen Misfortune. We'll see how well this impacts it. Look at this, 54 CS for MrRallez MF, with a 33 from xPeke Sivir. On the bright side, this utility AD carry, even if he falls a little bit behind in damage, there's a lot of early to mid game damage from the Zed and from the Olaf, and obviously the utility will help benefit the rest of the team.
I'm looking forward to seeing how well Zed can do right now because remember that QSS no longer removes the debuff, so with that it makes it a little bit easier to balance Zed's damage, and he did take a bit of a hit on 6-11, but if you can land your abilities, it somewhat compensates for that. So you have to be pretty good at Zed to make the most out of his damage. And PowerOfEvil, I think he definitely has the potential. It's just going to be a matter of will he be able to set that up for himself.
We'll find out. Sprattel unable to get that resolve W root down. The Hybrid is able to swim away, but still feeling the pain. And interestingly, because of the lane swap shenanigans, that advantage that Soaz had earned has been nullified. So only a 2 CS difference. Soaz can farm up a fairly sizable wave in front of him. And we just have to keep tracking how much further MrRallez can get ahead of xPeke.
Yeah, this is something that, PowerOfEvil is level 6.
He is level 6. Ignite is available. Here comes Amazing. Emperor's Divide plus Exhaust makes it look easy.
Great exhaust coming out from Fox. Straight into the cocoon of Gilius to set up for a very easy first blood for Fox. That was just a great play. Unfortunately for PowerOfEvil, he was not expecting Gilius to be there. And that was just wrong time, wrong place for PowerOfEvil.
Just so easy to use that exhaust as well. Once the animation pops back up, There's a replay. It's just really good timing from Fox, despite the fact that Amazing was in the wings.
It certainly was. I mean, you could see that PowerOfEvil, while he was midair, wanted to go back to the shadow, but because of the cocoon coming out from Gilius and the fact that PowerOfEvil was suspended in midair, he had no options available to him. So giving away that kill to Fox, not what you want to be doing on a Zed. As an assassin, you really are reliant on gold, especially a gold advantage over your opponent. So by allowing Fox to quickly itemize that Zhonya's means that Fox may very well be able to hold his own if he has to deal with PowerOfEvil in a side lane.
And that's a real problem for Origen. Especially when you go for that counter pick matchup. I've seen in the past when other assassins fall behind. Last week, for example, when Nukedex LeBlanc fell behind, he wasn't able to do a whole lot. But we are only 8.5 minutes in. Schalke have got a 1,000 gold lead. Amazing. Sneaking around. Smite from Gilius means he can secure the Bramble back without contest.
And things right now pretty slow. There's a bit of deep vision in the bottom half of the map coming out from Origen. They want to be able to control this early Matt and Drake, which is pretty highly valued. Some consider the next best after the Infernal Drake because of the ability that it provides to take down objectives a little bit quicker. It's also going to be great for that split push setup that PowerOfEvil and Soaz are going to be looking to try and get, because you can take those turrets a little bit quicker with that additional true damage onto those structures.
And talking about damage, Origen don't have magic damage. You know, there is a very, very small amount from Amazing, but it should be easy itemization here for the Schalke squad. And whenever we have those sort of linear damage types, it means there's a time limit, generally. You know, at some point your opponents have enough armor to deal with all the problems. So, ticking timer here for Origen.
It certainly is. The Black Cleaver will help just a little bit in terms of the actual overall team shredding, which Soaz is very likely to pick up, but as you rightly said, very like I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a Frozen Heart coming out from Gilius early on to mitigate some of that. Sprattel trying to be a little bit annoying onto the bottom lane of OG.
Look at the support here. Gilius and Amazing body slams in, follows with the flash. Instant reply from Gilius, and Peke maybe a little optimistic on the hunt. Schalke able to successfully disengage. Junglers trading their summer spells.
Yeah. Just a trade of summoners, Gilius, respecting the potential ultimate of Amazing. Didn't decide to try and hold on to his flash, even though he landed the cocoon, which was very smart of him. So again, both teams just testing the waters right now, not really trying too hard to push anything.
Yeah, look at this. Make It Rain comes down. Bullet time ticks across. xPeke chunked down to 300 hit points. And he's forced to back away. The cocoon finds its target. Gilius sent up by a bubble. Hybrid uses the exhaust as well, but he saves xPeke's life.
And have a look at this. PowerOfEvil also rotating up to the top half of the map. Wants to try and provide a bit of support for his bottom lane, but Schalke fully aware of this rotation. And they're not even slightly phased by it. The pressure still coming out from MrRallez and Sprattel. Really want to get this damage down onto the tier 1 turret and use this early game advantage that they've been able to exert.
Yeah. Get themselves some objectives that will lead to additional control. While this is all going on, by the way, Soaz has farmed himself up an advantage down bottom. We'll get back to that storyline in a second. Rawls, Sprattel going to have the support of Gilius under this tower. Look, no mana on Peke, no mana on Hybrid, no consumables either. So they've got to back away, and this will result in additional tower damage for Schalke.
Certainly will. This is something that Schalke do actually have quite a lot of. When you have the Azir to get a lot of poke down in this mid game, and MrRallez will get the ever so slight attack speed buff from her from her W, the strut. It also helps in taking down those turrets, so if they get near them, those structures will drop insanely quickly. As Sprattel is deciding to back in a very dangerous spot, perhaps.
Yeah, let's take a look. Origen, though, they've committed to this dragon, despite losing the tower up top. On the minimap, Peke and Hybrid, they were applying some pressure. All right, so Mountain Drake goes to Origen. They lost a tower, and they've lost control of the gold lead for the time being. Slightly slow finish there by Amazing. But again, that's what matters.
It is the toughest dragon to kill out of the 4. So when you have 2 beefy tanks slapping down onto it. He's a bit of a resilient guy, so it takes a little longer to kill. But they're going to be able to pick up that objective, relatively uncontested, and I think they can be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, talking about being longer to kill, Steve has already got his Senpai cape. So his opposite number, Phage, and those double long swords, going to become a Black Cleaver, I imagine. There we go. So now we can see whether the Shred can get through the HP and the mitigation. The Hybrid, he gets sent packing with the fishes. Steve really wants to defend that tower. And here comes Fox. Wow, I expected more from that.
I also
was
expected.
About to yell.
Yes, I was like, Fox, is he going for a play? I'm looking at the minimap going, there's no one there. What's he trying to do? But OG gonna take the turn in the top lane because of the rotation back down. Amazing hanging around. As 3 members strong for Schalke in the mid.
The thing is, Steve is the one with the teleport, and even though there's wards behind Origen, Steve is facing the team, so will not be the most optimal. It looks like MrRallez has done a very good job, though, of pushing down bottom. There's no one from Origen to reply. They committed all of their resources top. Olaf's not even here for this glimpse of the void, so I wonder who's going to pick up the buff. I would assume Peke?
They gave it to Peke in his last game, which surprised a few of us, wondering why they decided to give that buff over to him. But because you do have to remember that the damage bonus that you get is actually reduced on range carries as well, so it's not always optimal. Decided to give it to Amazing instead. I think in this situation, OG realized there's no way we can get to the bottom lane in time. There's nothing we can do about that tier 1 turret, so let's just get an objective in return. At the very least, we deny it from Schalke.
Yeah, and you know, Origen, they're falling a little further behind. They're down a tower, down a kill. Soaz, he gets caught by a cocoon. Blue buff is being stolen at the same time. Soaz forced to Ragnarok and flash to safety. And Sprattel actually picks that one up. Maybe donated, maybe secured.
Hey, Karma has a lot of poke. You can be very irritating if you are able to pick yourself up that blue buff. So, not a bad conversion as long as it doesn't go into Origen. I think Schalke is going to be happy as they look for a potential dive on the poke.
Yeah, not going to work with the cocoon not hitting, but look at the damage. Deathmark comes down. Fox is going to slide and glide forward. The exhaust is already used, and the tower stays alive. The rest of Origen's support is pulling in here through the jungle. And Origen looking to defend the tower. They're falling 2,600 gold down. But they're getting a few item spikes, and for Origen, it's now stopping the hemorrhaging. They have to stop giving Schalke so much freedom.
The big problem for OG is their only real wave clear is actually Sivir. I mean, you do have the axes from Soaz, but there's no real effective continuous wave clear available to you. And when you pair that up against the constant poke that's going to be coming out from Azir and Sprattel, to be fair, who after picking up that blue buff can just keep firing out those Qs, it does make it difficult for OG trying to defend these turrets. And this is what Schalke was trying to capitalize on. They were able to pick up that tier 1 turret in the top because they had the 2v2 advantage. They then rotated down and took another tier 1 in the bottom lane. And so they're now looking to apply a bit more pressure in the mid, solidify that final tier 1 turret.
And I'm going to get through all the wave clear that Sivir offers. Getting closer and closer to the first item. Peke is sitting at about 1,200 gold. MrRallez, Essence Reaver already completed, just picked up a Zeal. Fox has been sitting on that Hourglass for a little while. A little Stinger to add the attack speed on the back end.
So I'm thinking about what both teams are going to be looking for moving forward, because Origen have already committed themselves now to the 1-3-1. PowerOfEvil can just sit up in the top lane with the Zed. He doesn't want to pass the river because that is the danger zone. The point at which you're most likely to get ganked because you won't have the vision available to you. And then you can just leave Soaz in the bottom. He's got no turret, so what will happen is the wave will constantly push in his favor, and as long as he's shoving it back, it'll hit the turret and then constantly bounce back. So Origen with this setup can just buy time, wait for those big items, and look for an opportunity that can really solidify themselves in the league.
The scary thing is, if they do that, how much additional mid to late game strength does the Azir have over the Zed? Because that's going to become problematic. Especially when you consider Fox has already had bigger performances in summer than we've seen PowerOfEvil. But regardless, we'll touch on that in a moment. There seems to be some setup in the middle lane. Schalke grouped 1, 2, 3 members. A couple running in the river as well, and Amazing. Just clearing out wards. It's all about control, all about vision.
And it's all about not giving any more kills away over to Schalke, because Origen right now, they are on the back foot, sitting at about 2,000 gold deficit. And right now, Schalke, they want to just keep pressing this lead. They know that Misfortune is too strong right now. They also know that Fox has an advantage over PowerOfEvil without the teleport. It's not going to be easy for PowerOfEvil to just instantly join these fights. So It looks like Schalke just want to keep the pressure at mid.
And, you know, Origen find themselves in this situation because PeKe and Hybrid, they got out-duoed. You know, there was that call from OG to swap the duo lane up top. Hurt Soaz just a little bit. You know, he was in control of his lane. And obviously, PowerOfEvil went all in for the solo kill. Maybe it's not. Went all in with Amazing in the wings. And that backfired. So, you know, all those factors combined in Origen, approaching the 20-minute mark, down 2,000 gold, down a tower. But they do have that dragon. So that is a small solace. You know, if they get another mountain or if they want to play the dragon or Baron game, they've got that small buff.
And the Ocean Drake is going to be spawning in about 10 seconds. This could be a point of contention between the two teams, but it's very dangerous because the Misfortune now has completed that Essence Reaver. Likely to go towards the Phantom Dancer, I want to say. Typically, it's either Rapid Fire Cannon or Phantom Dancer, and Misfortune may decide to go for Rune Totem, but we'll have to see moving forward.
I have to warn you, if you say Danger Zone again, I may have to go Sterling Archer on you.
Did I say Danger Zone for a second time?
You not almost. You got me excited. You got me excited. So I'm listening out for it. But
is that a song? Because I know Danger, Danger, High Voltage.
Yeah, it's fine. That's a pretty good one too. Electric 6. But we'll get back to the distractions in a moment. PeKe, he is in so much trouble. Bullet time comes down. Spellfield doesn't do enough. And that just looked easy. Schalke set their sights on the tower. I do not think Origen can defend against this. And the answer is no, they cannot. Gilius, Fox, MrRallez going to continue to push forward. They've even got the support from Steve. And the safe objective. Oh, the Cocoon connects. Lucky for PowerOfEvil. Secondary proc of that Living Shadow takes precedence.
Wow, Schalke find themselves the pick, and they find themselves some pretty big objectives off the back of that. They're going to quickly rotate around, pick up their first break of the game, which will be the Ocean Dragon, and Schalke finally able to press their advantage. It was a really nice pick down onto PeKe, not only forcing both of his flash, but getting himself the kill as well is going to be absolutely massive for Schalke. Just punishing the fact that PeKe was just ever so slightly out of position.
Yeah, and Soaz, he's got a lot of damage on this top tower. Not a lot of support, another minion line coming in, so Soaz should be able to pick this one up. The minions stay under the tower. Soaz is trying to disregard Steve, but I think a Ragnarok and a run will work out. Now Fox, he fancies a shot. PeKe gets knocked backwards. You should know what an Azir can do. And PeKe gets soloed by Fox.
This was something that we saw from PeKe yesterday against Vitality. Sometimes his positioning is just a little bit off, and we're just going to have a replay of what exactly we mean by that as PeKe. He's standing near to its turret. He doesn't feel that afraid, but then the exhaust comes in from Fox, mitigating a lot of the movement speed that PeKe has. And because you're forced up against the wall, there's nowhere really for you to run against that bullet time. So Schalke getting themselves that kill, as well as another kill down onto PeKe, just demonstrating the lack of experience that he has.
Yeah, which is a surprise when you consider he's come up against Azir many times in the past. His own Azir play has been a hot topic of discussion.
The only defense I would give for PeKe there is, as a mid laner, typically you itemize slightly differently, your base health, your armor, your feel against an opponent is slightly different. So when you have this Azir come into you, as an AD carry compared to a mid, the amount of damage you expect to take will be very different depending on the role you play. So that's the only small solace I can give PeKe, but like, he shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Definitely a glass is half full kind of guy, aren't you, Betty?
Yeah. I mean, that's the... I can only speak from experience where I'm sitting there thinking like, hey, if I was Azir, I probably would have gone for that farm. But he's a professional player, so he can't use that excuse.
Well, unfortunately, no excuses permitted. Amazing's looking to set something up on Sprattel. Hybrid has already used the tidal wave, and that left a whole lot to be desired. Hybrid forced to run away as Fox chunks him down with the Sand Soldiers. And Origen not really in a position where they contest. And Olaf from behind, Zed from behind, hell, Sivir from behind. They're all champions that really, really can struggle.
The thing is for OG is you want to set yourself up for 1-3-1, but because of how far behind they've fallen, and because PeKe right now isn't enough to be able to clear the waves against this Azir Misfortune combo, they're just losing all of their structures too quickly for Origen to be able to respond.
Yeah, and they might be losing Gilius. This is Schalke, of course. PowerOfEvil has already used Deathmark, Flash, and Ignite. 3 members of Schalke are running him down. Look at those shadows. Razor Shuriken almost secures a kill. I'm looking at cooldowns. 10 seconds before Living Shadow comes back available. PowerOfEvil can dance for a while. The rest of Origen, they're grouping up in the middle lane. PowerOfEvil continues to run. 3 seconds for the next one. He at least gets the exhaust, buying as much time as he possibly can. Dashes away from the Sand Soldiers. The minimap, the rest of Origen unable to secure an objective from all the additional time. Tower still stands, so PowerOfEvil tried to go for the solo kill in Gilius and comes away wanting.
Invested far too many resources into a kill onto the jungler. When you're that far extended, we've already talked about the river being the danger zone. If you're going to commit that much onto a target in that area, you're only asking for failure. So if PowerOfEvil could have got the kill, maybe, but it's almost likely that he was going to give his life away.
PowerOfEvil's just in another power spike, got that Ghost Blade completed to back up more. Looking through some of the other items, MrRallez has been on the rapid fire cannon for a little while. You know, you're anticipating 1 or 2 different items for that Misfortune. Oh, the longer range. A real surprise there. And Gilius, Rylai's already. So Schalke just pressing their lead, playing this one smart, set up a lot of vision around Baron. So at any point, they can start playing the Baron bait, start playing the Baron game.
And with the amount of disengage that they have, it would actually be fairly safe. xPeke taking a huge chunk of damage on them again. Wow.
Oh, jeez.
Yep, so the important thing to remember about Misfortune is her ultimate can, in fact, crit. So by building Essence Reaver, it still also works. Decided to go for this build path as opposed to the Black Cleaver Ghost Blade that we did see.
And it's only like an 80-second cooldown. At this point, Hybrid takes so... Wow. Couldn't even channel a Tidal Wave. Just gets dropped where he stands. Schalke, after finding the kill, turn their attention to Peke. They get the inner turret and Amazing's tagged by the Cocoon. This is just systematic destruction. Down in the bottom lane, Soaz is doing what he can, but that little island that he's left on, that he's been living on, is slowly drowning by the weight of Origen.
And it just all comes back to that one play that PowerOfEvil tried to make on the spot. If it had gone his way and he'd gotten that kill, this game could have looked very different. PowerOfEvil could have been that massive side lane threat, but he just wasn't because he gave that away, and now Origen are getting collapsed on.
They are indeed. Teleport from Steve lands. He turns his attention to Amazing, pins Amazing against the wall with that heroic charge. The crowd goes wild as a tidal wave knocks up Rallez and Steve. Bullet time will become available shortly. Fox now finds Peke. He's killed him once already, looking for another. Sends out the Sand Soldiers, and Peke stays alive. And Soaz finally joins the team. He's got his teleport available. The Baron attempt has been stopped.
Does look like that Schalke were just using that Baron to bait OG towards them. They felt like that they had a big item advantage, and they wanted to force Origen into a choke point, where they could really make use of these big AoE ultimates that they have available to them. So Origen not falling prey to that trap. A lot of resources invested. The teleport gone from Steve, so he's no longer going to have that cross-map play, which means that Soaz can keep pushing in the bottom lane. Someone has to go and deal with him, and now maybe Origen can really take advantage of this 1v1.
Yeah, I guess one of the things to make note of is that despite Peke and Hybrid having the difficulties early, they're even on CS. You know, they're keeping themselves relevant. The gold is still about 200 or 300 different, which is actually not that much. The biggest concern I have is how do they deal with that very tanky Steve? Randion's Omen, Ninja Tabi, Senpai Cape. There's no magic damage to speak of, and he's already becoming very beefy.
But the same argument goes for Soaz. How is MrRallez going to be able to deal with this unstoppable force running straight for your face? And he's got a Black Cleaver on his belt, so he's going to be hitting pretty hard on top of being a level 14 Juggernaut.
What would Origen have to do to make use of Soaz's strength? How do they... Oh, look at that damage. How do Origen claw back control? Because they've been defensive. They've been on the back foot for 25 minutes.
They need to force a fight around an objective and catch Schalke out of position just like this.
Let's find out if they can. Gilius takes a lot of damage. Ragnarok is done. Defensive flash from Gilius. I saw a tidal wave in the top half of the map, but Peke is down. Hybrid's down. Fox has got a double kill. He's looking for more. Turns his attention to Soaz. Soaz is running for his life. Fox will get the cooldown shortly. That's a triple kill as PowerOfEvil's forced to recall, and Amazing's run away. Origen did not find the fight they wanted.
Origen had such a great setup to finally find an avenue back into the game, and just poor positioning and good target focus from Schalke result in Origen falling flat on their face, giving away 3 kills to Schalke, who might be able to pick themselves up the Baron.
Convincing victory in the team fight for Schalke. 5 members against 2. There's no death mark available for PowerOfEvil. Sansol just came out. Keeper's verdict sends Origen flying. Schalke pick up the Baron.
Great play from Schalke. Really well executed. Fox positioning in a way that allowed him to get the damage down onto Peke. And with Peke gone, that's a lot of the team fight damage unavailable for Origen. So just have a look at this setup. It's 2 versus 3 right now. Origen, if they just commit to a pick, they can potentially get themselves a kill and then with the numbers advantage try to close things out. But Peke, he's sitting on the backside getting collapsed on by Fox. And that was just really good play from Fox. Peke was sitting there trying to clear out a ward. And it was just a really nice collapse. And then with him gone, the rest of Schalke can come in for the collapse that Origen were trying to set up for themselves.
Mentioned in Picks and Bans, you know, Fox has had some phenomenal performances already this split. And that was one of the big moments. He's picked up solo kills. He's 6-0-2. Hourglass, Void Staff, Nashes. Needlessly large rod to boot. I'm just going to take a look. Currently sitting on 410 ability power.
Ouchies.
Yes, indeed.
I guess he's become the danger zone now.
Anywhere Fox is now dubbed as the danger zone, which is problematic for Origen. Bullet time does so much damage to 3 members of Origen. Steve sitting on the front line, buying enough time, in fact, for the rest of Schalke to look at the tower. Empress Divide comes out. Fox, that was a little eager. He's golden. The bubble does not find his target as Gilius lands a good cocoon. The tower is down. Here comes PowerOfEvil. Deathmark down into Gilius. PowerOfEvil's running away. The pop will do not enough. Steve is able to escape, and Fox's Sundisk will cover the retreat for now. The base is open, but not much more.
There were so many good targets for PowerOfEvil there, and he decides to go on to Gilius. Not entirely sure why he made that decision, but either way, Schalke can be very happy with that play. They get themselves the tier 1 turret. They don't lose any members. And they've finally cracked into the base of Origen and only 30 minutes into the game. And they may very well be able to pick themselves up a Mountain Drake.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. Nobody from Origen really in position to defend. If something for Origen, they stopped the inhibitor going down while their opponents have Baron buff. Another 1 minute 20. The target was Soaz temporarily. You can see that strut movement speed from MrRallez, getting him in range real quick.
The big thing about that is while Fox, he did go in for the somewhat over-eager play, as you called it, it still alleviated pressure from Schalke. It just forced Origen back, which meant that Schalke could just cleanly go in and guarantee themselves the turret. So it was a good execution one, even though it didn't net them any real gain.
Oh, there we go. Amazing. Has a flash available. Fox is in a little bit of trouble. The barrel comes out, lands into the bubble. The tidal wave to follow. Here comes Soaz. Shutdown kill as Peke gives a breath of life to Origen. Steve forced to use the Keeper's Verdict defensively, sending Origen away. A very good bullet time. That's going to melt the fat man. Gragas is down. A 2-man bubble lands from Hybrid. Peke's on the front line. He has to deal with 4 members of Schalke, but Ralls and Steve take him down after all the good is done. Gilius sinks his fansing. The bubble won't stop anybody else, and Ralls is on a killing spree. Origen, it looked so good, but then it looked so bad.
It certainly did, and now Schalke, they're likely going to pick themselves up an inhibitor, and with the numbers advantage, who knows how many objectives they can take, because there just isn't the wave clear available for Origen. But what a great fight for Schalke. Fox a little bit out of position, but the fact that they were able to turn that one around in their favor is absolutely exceptional. They're going to pick themselves up the inhib, they're going to get themselves the tier 2 turret in the top, and they're going to walk out pretty happy.
What a difference in play from Schalke. Yesterday, they went down 2-0 to Splice. They looked all out of sorts. Gilius in particular, he just did not have a good day yesterday. Today shows up, they play patient and controlled, and it hasn't been the flashiest, but it's been Schalke all game. They've been in the lead, and they've used the lead, I feel, relatively well.
They certainly have. Fox here, he just wants to clear out some wards. He doesn't really want to interrupt anyone's day, but Origen, they want to change that. They quickly commit down, and this is looking great for Origen. They have the numbers advantage, they're in a great setup, but then the ultimate from Steve to turn this fight from a 5v4 into a 4v3 in their favor, followed by what was a great bullet time. Again, Steve getting the knock into the wall to guarantee the damage down. Just excellent play coming out from Schalke and Steve in particular.
Well, round 2, fight. 7,000 gold down. Origen look to create magic. Keeper's Verdict. This time sends Soaz away. That's very important. Soaz has a teleport if he needs it, though. PowerOfEvil running for his life. Dragon is secured by Schalke, and no further contest. Look at the minimap. Origen are completely split.
Oh.
Steve, the flash stun. He finds xPeke and Fox kills him. Origen, they lose another one, and they are still completely split up.
Great pick from Steve, and Schalke now with the numbers advantage. They're going to continue chasing down to Soaz. He does have his ultimate available, but fortunately they are going to be able to disengage. And Schalke, they're all more interested in this tier 3 turret in the top.
Yeah, they are indeed. Soaz can come in from behind, but to do what exactly? Hybrid, as well as amazing in the base, and tower is down. Inhibitor will follow shortly. Origen are just scattered. They simply cannot hold up against the pressure that Schalke is putting down. The xPeke is at limited to no impact. And xPeke, unfortunately, is just having a really, really tough opening game for the series.
On the bright side, his farm's really good. 311 at 33 minutes. Hey, I've got to look at the bright side of this, all right? But unfortunately, the dark side heavily outweighs the bright side. And, right now, Origen are really struggling. They haven't been able to optimize the team composition whatsoever. They wanted the 1-3-1, they wanted to run really fast, and unfortunately, neither of those options were ever really made available.
And you know, we go even further back in picks and bans. Schalke targeted the Bard, the Braum. They got Hybrid off his comfort picks. And we'll carry on to this discussion in a moment. Here's a replay of that fight where just Origen are completely split.
Fair play to Steve. He's been using these ultimates perfectly, always keeping the most important target of Origen away from the fight. They knew that Soaz would be the real threat, and with him gone, xPeke is just a sitting duck to be destroyed. So a little bit unfortunate for xPeke, is Fox now getting good poke down to Soaz.
Yeah, really good damage from those soldiers. Got himself MrRallez as well to back up all that additional utility. Baron has worn off, obviously, but it's, sorry, Baron buff will be up in 10 seconds. Will give Schalke another opportunity to close out if they even need it. Still super minions in the top and middle lane. Now, caution and control from Schalke. If they buy enough time for supers to get in the base, they can just do this one by the numbers. Because the last time they sieged an inhibitor turret, it got a little scary. All right, Amazing's decided to engage. Hasn't found a target that he wants to. Early Hourglass xPeke, forced away by bullet time. MrRallez screaming with that misfortune. Here comes PowerOfEvil once again. Gilius is the target of the death mark, but it means the death to PowerOfEvil. Flash forward. Gilius sends out a volatile spiraling instead of the cocoon. Gets the flash from xPeke, though, out of respect. And with supers in the base, Schalke, they turn their attention to the Nexus. This could be the final push. Soaz, he's living on an island because he does not care. Amazing goes down as Fox sends his soldiers forward. Just Rawls that's got the kill. Emperor's Divide to ensure nobody else can interrupt. Fox gets killed by Soaz. The Nexus is being hammered down. Schalke should be able to finish this one off. There is a last-ditch effort, but the super minions are pouring in. It's getting a little close, but I think Schalke can do it. They will force out the fight. They will find themselves a kill in the Soaz, and they will take down the Nexus for a 1-0 in the head-to-head.
Schalke, they take themselves the game in what was pretty clean fashion, putting a lot of pressure onto shutting down xPeke. Very similar strategy to what Vitality ran against Origen yesterday. PowerOfEvil bringing out the Zed, not quite being able to make it work for the team. But overall, it was just Schalke really making good use of both the Misfortune and the Azir.
Yeah, and I think, you know, banning two supports, putting a Hybrid into something lower down his tier list, then picking the Misfortune that has some bullying power in lane against the newest ADC role swap here in Europe, like I think it's a valid strategy, and it's one that Schalke used well. Obviously, because you saw that prompted lane swap from Origen.
It certainly did, and a lane that I'm not super familiar with, the Misfortune Karma lane, but clearly it's something that you have to be very wary of because, especially going up against a Sivir, it can cause a lot of damage.
It absolutely can. We're going to hear just a little bit more, maybe from Freeze, hopefully, on that Misfortune over on the analyst desk.